Looking for exercises to increase your leg strength? You've come to the right video. Hey there, it's Gaz and Ollie from Be Mobile Physio, your experts in strength and fitness for those 55 plus. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any other video.
Now guys, keeping your legs strong after the age of 55 is so important for your ability to handle tasks like getting up from the floor, getting up off a chair, perhaps getting down into a kayak or something like that, or just handling all of the tasks that you'd love to do.
But your legs are only going to get weaker if you're not challenging them with strength training. So in this video, we put together 9 formidable strength exercises that you can put into your workouts to keep your legs nice and strong.
Okay, exercise number 1, and perhaps the most formidable of the leg exercises, is the squat. Now the squat, of course, we're finding a comfortable position and we're lowering the hips or the bottom down in between your feet. Now it's a great exercise for building up your quadricep strength in the front of your thigh, as well as gluteal strength and your back strength, particularly if you load this one up with a weight, but more on that in a moment. Now, when I say to people, the squat's a great exercise for you to do, especially amongst people who are over 55, I often hear, well, it's too painful for my knees, or I can't tolerate it with my hip. So if that's the case, with your squats, make it a little bit easier. You can go to something like a sit to stand, for example. So find a chair, and you're just simply lowering yourself down to the chair and then standing back up. Almost identical movement, but just sitting down on the chair in between each rep makes it a little bit easier and makes it a lot more comfortable. Now, if that was even too much, you could, of course, make the chair higher. So you can do a cushion. Okay, same thing. And you can see the joint angle is considerably less there, which makes it more tolerable if you do have sensitive knees. So sit to stand is a great option. You could also do something like a box squat if the sit to stand feels a little too easy. So instead of sitting all the way down onto the chair, you might just lower yourself down and touch, and then come back up and touch and come back up. Now, if you're killing it with your squats and you want to make it harder, well, then that's where we would add some weight. So you grab a dumbbell like this one I've prepared earlier and hold it however you like. I like to hold it in front like I'm holding a big cup of wine, and slowly lowering down and coming back up. Now the goal is to get as low as you can, but it's got to be tolerable, okay? So you're just going down as far as you can comfortably go. Now, I should say with your squats, there's not one right way to do it. You don't have to stay perfectly straight. You don't have to keep your toes pointed directly forward or anything like that. Find a comfortable stance. That might be wide, might be narrow, might be toes pointed outwards, okay? And similarly, you can stick your bottom out if that makes it more comfortable, or you can stay more upright. So play around with your squats, and you can see they're pretty tough. Play around with them and find a way that works for you so that you can continue building your leg strength, and you'll love this one in the long term.
Exercise number 2 is the step up. Now, let me tell you how to do the step up. I know what you're thinking. It's a simple exercise. I know how to do it. It's in the name. And you're not wrong. It's nice and simple, but let me give you a few tips. So you just want to find a step. You're going to place one foot completely onto the step. Now here's where people go wrong. You're going to stand up all the way until your legs are straight until you put your other foot back on there. Okay, so it's a common mistake to sort of get halfway up, get 2 feet on there, and then stand the whole way up. The other common mistake I find is that people will go up with one foot, down with the other, and they'll alternate in that fashion. I think it's best to have one foot on the step the whole time, and you're going to do your reps up and down in that way, and that way you're building up a bit more fatigue in that leg. So we're working on the muscles, the quads, the glutes, and the calves in that leg, which is up on the step. Now, if that's a bit too hard for you, there's a couple of things which you can do. The first and most obvious is to find a smaller step. Okay? If that's not an option for you, then you might be able to find a step with a handrail next to it, and you can use a bit of your upper body to help you in that fashion as well. Conversely, if it's not quite challenging enough for you, there's another couple of things which you can do. You can find a bigger step, first of all, or you can add some weight. Okay, so you could have a dumbbell, might be a backpack, whatever it is, and you can just hold that as you go throughout the movement. And there is one more way which you can make this exercise a bit more challenging, and that is reducing the amount with which you're using your other leg here. So you've got one leg up on the step, try to go all the way up, lightly touch that foot on the step just for your balance, and then go back down. And that way you've got tension in that leg, in those muscles the whole time. So that's the step up. Give that one a go.
Okay, exercise 3 is the glute bridge. No surprises what this one works. It's the biggest muscle in your body, the gluteus maximus, that one in your buttocks. Now, what you're going to do is lie down. You can do it on the floor, you can do it on a bed, whatever's comfortable for you. Okay, bending the knees up to 90 degrees, hands by your side, and you're simply lifting your hips up off the floor as far as you can, and then slowly lowering back down to the floor. Okay, just like that. Now, for most people, that's pretty manageable. It's a good one for building up strength in the backs of your thighs. So if you want to make it harder, what you can do is elevate your feet. So I've got a step here, but you could use something even higher like a chair, and you're going to do the same thing. So you're lifting your hips up, and I can already feel that more in my glutes and even in my hamstrings as well. Another option is to just do a single leg version. So with one leg held out like that, you're lifting up and slowly lowering back down. I can't emphasize that enough. If you're just dropping back to the floor, it's going to take away a lot of the movement. So you want to go all the way up, squeeze that glute, and then come back down nice and gently. And of course, you're going to do that on both legs. Now, if this one's not manageable for whatever reason, it's not really an easier version. You can just do a smaller version like that and just focus on lifting up your hips, just like that. Okay, so that's a great exercise for working the glutes and the hamstrings.
The next exercise are lunges. Now, the lunges are typically slightly more challenging and they're certainly a more dynamic movement, but they are still a great exercise for strengthening your quads, your glutes, and your calves. So this is how you do it. You're going to start with your feet together. You're going to take a big step forwards. Now, the bigger your step, the better here. Big step forwards, and the aim of the game is to lower that back knee down towards the ground as far as you can before pushing off that front foot back together. I like to alternate my lunges, so stepping forwards with the other leg then, dropping that back knee down like so. So obviously a bit more dynamic, a bit more power involved. So if you can't tolerate that, here's what you can do. You can hold on to something for balance. There's a bit of balance involved in this exercise, so you can either have a broomstick, whether you're by the kitchen bench, holding onto something else, that's fine, and then you're going to go through that same movement. Another thing which you can do is reduce the range of motion. So you still want to take a big step forwards, but you might lower your back knee not quite as far towards the ground. That's going to mean your joints don't have to go through as big a range of motion and there's not as much tension there, so it's going to be a bit more tolerable for you as well. Now, there's one other thing which you can do. You can replace the exercise with a very similar alternative called a split squat. So in this version, you have your feet out in front, but you don't have to step back and forth in between. You're just going to cement your feet in that position and then go down, end up in that way, and then you perform your reps consecutively in that position. But if that's too easy, if that's all too easy, we're going to get even more dynamic, and we're going to do a lunge, but we'll do a walking lunge. Okay, so we're stepping forwards, knee towards the ground, and then we're up, and we're alternating as we go there. So a bit more dynamic, a bit more balance involved. You could go backwards, but that's perhaps for another video. Okay, give those lunges a go.
Exercise 5 is the deadlift, and it's a great one for building up strength in the hamstrings, the glutes once again, as well as the muscles in your back. So to do the deadlift, you're going to take a weight like a kettlebell, it could be a dumbbell, or it could be a bag filled with books. You know, have it in between your feet and simply stand up straight, just like that. Okay. Oh, and I forgot, it's really good for your grip strength too. Now, the deadlift is good, but a lot of people often say, I can't do the deadlift because I've got a bad back or I've had back pain in the past. Now, to those people, I would say, well, have you ever picked up something off the ground like a tissue box? Well, you've done a deadlift. The fact of the matter is you've got to find a level that you can start with. So it might be 1 kilo, it might be just your body weight, slowly lowering down into that position and coming back up. And then gradually over time, you're building up the weight. Now, if you want to make it easier, you've got a couple of options. You could put a block on the floor or a couple of books so that you don't have to bend over as far. That's going to make it easier on your back. Or you could even forget the block and just start up the top and just go down to a level that's comfortable before returning to that starting position. Now, if you want to make it harder, well, ideally you're increasing the weight that you're using, and that's going to carry over to increased confidence with all your lifting activities. But the deadlift's a great one, so give it a go.
Exercise 6 is a standing abduction. Now, this is a really good exercise for strengthening the structures on the side of the hip. So things like your glute med, the tendon of that muscle as well, or your bursa. So things to strengthen up that area there. So here's how you do the standard version. You're just going to stand upright. You can hold on to something for balance. That's fine. The movement is simply lifting your leg out to the side as much as you can and then bringing it back to the middle. Now, a little tip here, I like to not put my foot back on the ground completely every time. So we're going to have to hinge the hips a little bit to start with and then bring it out to the side before coming in, not putting the foot on the ground and then going back out again. Here's a couple little tips, a couple of things to focus on so that we're really targeting those structures around the hip. A common mistake is to tilt the body to the side, right? And this is not going to hinge the hip so much or move the hip, rather our torso. So we want to keep nice and upright as we bring that leg out to the side. Now, another tip to make sure that we're focusing on the muscles which we're trying to target is to keep your toe, your foot face straight ahead, and that's to start with and throughout the whole movement as well. So we're trying to avoid letting the toe sneak out to the side there. Now, if you can't quite tolerate that full range of motion out here, all we're going to do is reduce it. So we're just going to go out to a period, or a point rather, that we can tolerate, still trying to keep upright and still trying to keep your toe forwards and then back together. Now, if that's too easy and we want to level things up a bit and challenge those structures a bit more, we're going to come down to the floor and we're going to be on our side. All other things apply here. So you're going to keep your toes still faced straight ahead to start with, and throughout the movement, you're going to go up as far as you can tolerate, and then control it on the way back down as well. And if you really wanted to level up here, if you put an ankle weight on or a TheraBand around your ankles or your knees, then that's really going to increase the challenge and hence increase the strength and tolerance in those muscles and structures there. So find one of those that works and give it a go.
There you are. For exercise number 7, if you like the deadlift, you're going to love the single leg deadlift. Works all the same muscles, but we're really favoring one side, so it's quite a challenging one. Now, the hardest version, we're going to start with the weight by that front foot, okay? We're going to have the back foot in the air, so we're working on the balance here. We're slowly going down and coming to that upright position, okay? So I like to keep my eyes fixed on one spot on the floor to help me with the balance, all the way down, all the way back up. Now, I realize this is particularly tricky, especially if you haven't done these before. So to make it easier, you can hold on to a piece of furniture, okay, just gently to help you with that balance. Okay, and you're going to get the same effect there. Or to make it even easier, you can actually just rest that back foot on the toe on the floor. All right, like you're starting a running race, and that just makes it a little bit more stable. Now, if you are doing that strategy, try to keep the weight over the front leg, okay? We don't want to turn this into a split squat like Gaz showed earlier. We keep the weight over that front foot, just rest that back foot on the floor for balance. And that's really going to challenge the hamstrings and the glutes. But the added benefit of this is the weight wants, if I show you front on, the weight wants to pull me down like this. So we're bringing in some of these muscles around the trunk and the abdomen as well. So that's the single leg deadlift. Give it a go.
The next exercise is the calf raise. Now, no prizes for guessing which muscles these are working. They're working the muscles in your calves, but you have two main muscles in your calves, your gastrocnemius and your soleus, which you should be able to see in my formidably defined calves here. So, back up to me, please. The exercise, the standard version, is going to be on a step. Okay, so you're going to stand on the edge of the step, your balls of your feet on there. You're going to go up onto your toes as far as you can. And importantly, you're going to control it all the way back down until you can feel a bit of a stretch at the back of your calves there. Okay, so all the way up and then controlling it all the way down until your heels drop slightly below the step. Now, you don't need too much of a step here. It doesn't have to be terribly large, so it could be a step or just some form of threshold for you to work on there. Obviously, I'm holding on to something here because it's not a balance exercise. It's a strength exercise, and we want to focus on that strength. If that's too easy and we want to level things up, we're just going to remove one leg and then do a single leg version there. So everything else is exactly the same. You're still going up onto your tippy toes as far as you can and still trying to control it on the way back down. However, if you can't tolerate either of those versions, and perhaps it's that stretching component there where your heels are dropping below the step, we're just going to do it on the flat. Okay, so we're going to start with your feet nice and flat on the ground and then still going up onto your tippy toes. We're still going to control it on the way back down, but we're just not going to get so much of that stretch component at the bottom there. And that's probably going to be a bit more tolerable, particularly if you have some Achilles issues there. But give those a go and strengthen up those calves.
Okay, for our final formidable leg exercise, we are going back to a classic, the wall sit. Now, this is a great one that we like to use to finish off a workout by giving the quads a really good burn. But conversely, it's also a really good one if you are having trouble with that up and down movement of squats because you've got sensitive knees perhaps, and you just want to hold a comfortable position. So leaning against a wall, put your feet out so they're flat. Then you're going to slide down the wall and ideally getting to that 90-90 position. So we've got a 90-degree bend at the knee and at the hip, and we're simply going to hold that. And these muscles are having to do an isometric contraction. So there's no movement, but they're just having to hold your body weight in the one position. Now, I reckon this is tough as is, but if you're particularly strong and you want to make it more challenging, you could, of course, hold onto a weight, or you could even do little pauses on one leg. Oh, that's tough. And then on the other. Oh. And to make it easier, of course, you're just going to slide up to find a point that you can tolerate for a good amount of time. So they're a really good way to finish off a workout, or as I said, to find a way to make it comfortable to hold one position. But that's the wall sit. Give it a go.
So there are 9 formidable exercises for you to choose from. But remember, you don't have to do them all. Pick a few and include them in your twice weekly strength workouts. 3 sets of 10 reps would be a great place to start.
And if you're looking for some upper body exercises that you can include with these leg moves, then check out the video on screen.